Day 7 of the Commission's hearing is on a short break for 15 minutes. The Commission will resume hearing. We're expecting some chief inspectors to appear. Per the program outline we've seen, DSP Azugu is also likely to appear. But as we've seen for previous days, sometimes there are some adjustments and the Commission adjourns hearing to the following day. We're still going to do some analysis here on the Joy News channel. My colleague Daniel Dazi is here with me. Daniel, let's start from where the Commission just took a break. The petition or application by lawyers of Mr. Sam George and Delali Brimpong, who was the NDC's candidate in the Ayawaso Westbrook election, to recall witnesses for cross-examination has been ruled on. And we just heard the chairman of the commission say that is not going to be allowed. They don't want to set a certain precedence. But you've been speaking to lawyer Samson Ladi Ayenene.
And we'll hear from him shortly, but it was specifically this question of, is it going to drag the work of the commission so that anybody at all can come and ask that he can call any number of witnesses? And Samson Ladi Ayenene had some disagreements. Now, here's the principle, and that's what Dr. Dominic Aine was alluding to. Delali Kwesi Brimpong has been accused of having a stockpile of arms in his home. Delali Kwesi Brimpong has been accused of owning a home where shots were fired. The National Security Minister, Albert Kandapar, has said that his men fired only 6 rounds in the air. And 49 bullets, or 49 gunshots were heard in the video.
From a certain video.
From a certain video. He says that the men who were firing gunshots were not familiar, the men who were injured, pardon me, were not familiar with the guns there. That means that these men may have accidentally shot themselves. On that background, Delali Kwesi Brimpong may have committed a crime. Allegedly, he may have committed a crime. Whether or not he was in the house, the fact that it is home, he may have committed a crime. On that basis, he's someone who wants to go to parliament. He's someone who, you know, he's a pharmacist, he's doing his business. If his reputation is studied on that basis, or he has to go to prison for any of these things which could turn out to be crimes, that, of course, he wouldn't want that. That would inform, that's what the lawyers would tell you, would inform his wanting to bring back those persons who said those specific things about him and cross-examine them.
Exactly.
So that he could clear his name. Now, that being said, and you remember Dr. Dominic Aine alluding to that.
Yes.
That he could be, Mr. Sam George could be expelled from parliament, what have you. So that being said, he now makes this demand. Now, the question that Justice Emil Short sought to answer is that, will our findings affect you? The understanding that Dr. Dominic Aine has is that it will not affect his client. However, he has said
he hopes it wouldn't.
Exactly. He said that that's what I understand. Now, he has further said that he will go and read it further so that he'll be satisfied, he and his clients will be satisfied. And then they'll make their decision. But on the background of their reputations could be sullied, he could lose his seat, and of course, Delali Kwesi Brimpong could lose the opportunity to run for parliament. Samson Ladi Ayenene had this to say about how it would affect even the commission's findings.
If one presents evidence and it is against you, and that evidence is not interrogated, the value of that evidence is as useless as, you know, it were not presented at all. So if you do not allow a person who is affected by the testimony of the other to interrogate that evidence is left with no weight. You see, so it is actually in the interest of the commission itself to allow the process, particularly for persons that there is the potential that the commission will make findings against them, favorably or unfavorably, but more especially adverse findings. And you ought to note that the findings of the commission have the potential of disabling and disqualifying an individual who appears before them from holding public office for life, from becoming an MP, from becoming a president, unless 6 months after those adverse findings and a white paper has been released or an announcement has been made by the government that it does not intend to publish the report. Unless 6 months after that, that person has asserted their right to appeal in the Court of Appeal to overturn the decision of the commission. So if the findings of the commission, particularly when they are adverse, can have such impact, okay, on an individual, they certainly must have a right. They certainly must have a right.
You heard the lawyer Samson Ladiayen and Daniel, he was speaking to you about this issue.
So, I mean, with the background that I gave before that interview, I believe that should settle the substance of what he said. However, if Dr. Dominic Ayine is working away with the understanding that adverse findings cannot be made against his client, Sam George and Delali Kwesi-Brempong, let's take this hypothetical situation. We've had 2 ministers of state. We've had the director of operations, the director of operations at the National Security Secretariat. We've had the head of the SWAT team at the National Security all come and testify to the fact that they had reason to believe that Delali Kwesi-Brempong was keeping a stockpile of arms. Let's say that were true. Would he serve time for his crimes? It's not a question for you.
I appreciate it, rhetorical.
Yeah, would he serve time? Can he be punished? If Dr. Dominic Ayine walks away with the understanding that his client's adverse findings cannot be made against his client, who can adverse findings be made against? Because here is the case where the Ayawaso West Wogon Commission is not like the Ghana 50 Commission. It's not like the commission where Kojom Pieni went and where it had the terms of reference state explicitly that these persons cannot be prosecuted. And we have spoken to government on several occasions on the matter. In fact, Secretary to the Commission, Ernest Kofi Abochi, has said repeatedly that the police can continue to do their work. The Commission's work does not stop the police from working.
Exactly.
Okay, so after and since the police, yes, they have an investigative committee of sorts. The sort of evidence and the candidness with which the witnesses before the commission will speak, and the sort of evidence that can be gleaned from the commission's hearings, it would be very, very informative for any attorney general to pick it up, or any prosecutor to pick it up and decide to go on the basis of that, maybe investigate further or go to court in the first place. So what then can happen to someone who, 2 ministers or 3 ministers and senior police personnel have said had a stockpile of arms in his home? If the commission then says that as a result of what we've heard, we can determine that there was a stockpile of arms in this man's home, what then becomes of Mr. Delali Kwesi-Brempong? What of this assurance that Dr. Dominic Ayine walks away with?
Interesting observation there, Daniel. But let's talk about the issue of vigilantism. We heard Mr. Sam George say yesterday that he believes the Azoka boys are actually society-based, community-based, thank you, community-based organization, thanks. And today he was asked to clarify that. In fact, no, he was asked a question about that, and he sought to clarify his statement yesterday, saying that it was an opinion he had on the matter. It was his opinion on the matter. And we've heard the commissioners ask many of the people who've come to testify how vigilantism started, or what they think is the root cause of it. We've had some allude to employment issues, and now we hear Sam George talk about, interestingly, land tenure system. He brings in the issues of, or the issue of how land is protected in Ghana. Remember when we heard from DSP Azugu, I believe, talk about the work of his SWAT team. Remember, he spoke about protecting public land. It's interesting that Mr. Sam George brings this perspective of land tenure system and how it may be fueling vigilantism in the country.
Bernice, there are various industries within the country which create space for some persons to break the law. The first question you need to ask yourself is, what is the motivation? What is the possible payout for some of these people? And secondly, what is the motivation for the persons who may want to pay them? So I can point, for instance, to illegal mining. Illegal mining is a very profitable venture in the country. Illegal mining has been known to be dangerous in terms of persons wanting to protect their lives. I know that illegal miners have publicly sat in press conferences, and they have said publicly that they are willing to face legal government security agencies when it happened in the Ashanti region. Some of these issues that happened is what led to the death of the communications manager for Ashanti Goldfields. If the name of the company does not escape me. And so there are various spaces where if you're a muscular young man in Ghana, you can employ your skills as, excuse my language, a macho man. And land guards, if you look at Latif Idris's documentary, Land Wars, he spoke to people, muscular young men, who talk about how in the first place, they too, in that space, they too feel they have the protection of key members of government. They too feel they have the protection of traditional leaders. They too feel they have the protection of powerful people in society. So as long as there is a certain space where these persons can operate, then we might as well add it there. For me to make a certain stretch to say that these are the same people who operate as land guards, I do not know. I do not have that evidence. Maybe Sam George may be in a better position to provide that. Maybe he may want to provide better and further evidence on this. However, I am looking at the case where there is violence associated with land issues. We know land guards do exist, and there is a similarity between, if I can use the expression, land guardism and political militialism, because here too there's a link between persons of influence. There's a high payout if you know the value of some of these lands. And I mean, we've had members of parliament had their homes demolished because of sitting members of parliament, because of issues having to do not directly with land guards, but with the protection of their land in general. So if somebody knows that even if I'm a member of parliament, my piece of land will not be protected, he may, and he's unscrupulous enough, he may decide to protect his land with land guards. So I mean, it's about the industry, and if Sam George is saying that it's not too much of a stress.
Now let's listen to what Mrs. Sam George said earlier about the leader of the Hawks.
Out that the man is actually called Harvey to Mami Fuasechiedu, and that he is not resident in that building. But all of this are with the benefit of hindsight and not having men assault me.
At what point, for instance, did you find out that the man did not live in that house and that he had not died?
My lord, this was either later that day or the next day when I got in touch with some members of the party, and I was trying to find out how other members who had been assaulted, or other members of the public who I had watched footage. I mean, I'd followed the media reportage and heard that some people had been seriously wounded, some people were in hospital, and somebody had his leg at risk of amputation and all. So I tried to find out what was happening with other people. And that was when I began to ask about the gentleman in white shirt and brown trousers that I had seen motionless. And then it came to my knowledge that he had actually been sent to hospital. He was not deceased.
Very well. There's this video in which you show a gentleman in white, sleeveless, what we normally call a singlet.
Yeah.
Now, the chairman asked you whether you knew who he was, and you said you did not. Am I right?
Yes, my lord.
Very well. So then you wouldn't be able to tell, if for instance I should tell you that we have had evidence before the commission that this gentleman passes himself as the leader of the Hawks.
My lord, I'm in no position to ascertain that.
So if you do recall, yesterday, Colonel Michael Opoku, while delivering his testimony, made a presentation and he showed a video of a certain man on a hospital bed claiming to be a part of an NDC security group. And those are the kind of questions that are coming up from those videos. But earlier in his presentation this morning, Mr. Sam George also showed a couple of videos. Remember that yesterday he wanted to show those videos to buttress his evidence that he was given to the commission, but that was not allowed. But we are told that the commission decided to allow him to show those videos and explain after reviewing the videos presented by him. And Daniel, in those videos, in one of them, for example, he disputes that the men in khaki were not armed. He shows videos to show that they were armed. Now, he also showed a video to give evidence to his narrative about how he arrived at the polling station. Remember, earlier we heard DSP Azugu say that he came in with Mr. Okovandapoy, Alfred Okovandapoy, and came with about men on 15 motorbikes. Some of them had, you know, some 2 people on them. He showed some video evidence to dispute that narrative, but to buttress his own that he gave yesterday. Now, he also showed the video about the young man who he says he initially thought was dead because he had seen him motionless. And now we are learning that that's actually the cousin to the deputy women's organizer of the NDC. And he mentions his name as Harvey. And then he also showed a video, Daniel, very interesting one. I remember we spoke about it yesterday, where he claimed he was in a certain room with a CTFM journalist and an EC official. Today we are learning it's actually a woman, and the ballot box. He mentions the name of the CTFM reporter. He says he saw Hansen Ajaman, who is a national service person with City TV. And so, Daniel, we got to see that video. We got to see other videos that were shot from that location of people being assaulted and all that. Interesting evidence. Some of the videos we are seeing for the first time, especially the one that he claimed was shot from Mr. Brimpong's home, where you see a shot of the members, the members of the security force or the SWAT team, and then you see the crowd in that. That's the first time you're seeing that video.